Hi there, guys. So everyone's going to be familiar by now with the Angela Rayner story from this week, where she's been pressured into resigning due to question marks over her housing and tax affairs. And of course, everyone knows that Angela Rayner was one of the very few really working class voices in Parliament. She grew up on a council estate. She was a young single mum. She left school without qualifications. Her own mum had mental health difficulties and she worked as a carer in her early life. So, in terms of her life story, she's got a totally different experience to most people who are working in Parliament or who work as MPs. Most of them are going to come from maybe the legal profession, big business, maybe banking, or quite frequently, they've worked their way up through their political party and then they are basically a professional politician. So to lose her voice and presence within government is an absolutely huge blow for Labour. But beyond the politics of it all, I wanted to think a little bit today about when, if at all, you stop being working class. Because when you look at the reasons why she's resigned, it got me thinking that, I don't know many working class people who own two houses and who have access to a third house, through work. I don't know many working class people who seek advice on their tax affairs for that reason. And then, of course, you can take it a little bit further. Are you still working class if you're earning over £90,000 a year? Are you still working class if you work in a professional managerial position like an MP? And the reason why I wanted to think about this was because it's a really useful thought experiment, because in this country, our media is absolutely obsessed with the white working class and the working class in general, with what they call hero voters, Mondeo man, Workington man, and various other iterations of the same phenomenon. And when you dig a little bit deeper, the people that they're referring to as Mondeo man or Workington man, those people, they might be sitting on £500,000 worth of property wealth and substantial pensions. I think a lot of what we hear about the working class via the media is usually just a load of old lazy stereotypes from bad faith actors, in the media or the pundit class, who want to use their conception of the working class for their own ends. So when do you stop being working class, if at all? Perhaps it's about your economic situation. Maybe you get a high income job, you start accumulating wealth, you own a home, you start building equity in your home, you've got investments via stocks and shares, that sort of stuff. And that gives you a sort of economic safety net. Or is it about your educational background and your educational achievements? Maybe you go to uni, you get a degree or a master's degree, PhD even. Perhaps you get some work-related professional accreditation and you start to work your way up through your company or your business. And then, is it related to your occupation? So, perhaps you, like Angela Rayner, you move from manual labour or unskilled labour, to a more professional, managerial or knowledge-based career. Or is it related to sort of cultural and social background? Maybe you start to move in different circles, you embed yourself within different social networks, you get different cultural tastes and maybe different cultural behaviours, more associated with the educated professional classes. Or perhaps it's a combination of all of that. Or is class just an immutable characteristic that stays with you dependent on your early life experiences? So with that in mind, and to bring this back to Angela Rayner, I've got absolutely loads of sympathy for her because she's been consistently targeted by the right-wing media in this country because of her background, because she was a threat to their stereotypes and because she could talk authentically to the working class in a way that they couldn't, and now they've got her scalp. But in my opinion, she also didn't stay true to her background. And I don't mean that in terms of her housing situation or her income, but I mean that in terms of what she did in office. So she went through the lobby recently to vote through the PIP cuts. She backed the government against the Birmingham bin workers. She aligned herself with Starmer and his constant attack on migrants and asylum seekers. And for me at least, none of that seems authentic or true to her background, or just in general terms, authentic or true to working class interests. So to answer my own question, despite her wealth and position of power, I think we could still legitimately call Angela Rayner working class based on her background and her life experiences if she'd used her position to advance working class interests, but she didn't. So for the reasons I've outlined, maybe she ceased being working class sometime over the last 5 years as she's embedded herself in this sort of centrist political project, whatever it is, as she sided with the government against working class people, and as she's gained all the trappings of the uber rich, the multiple houses, the ministerial car, the lucrative pension, everything in this country comes back to class. And I think this is a really valuable lesson for any young working class person who wants to pursue a career in politics, if indeed there are any of those. Our political system is dirty, it's tainted, it is corrupt, and it will corrupt you. So just be really careful not to forget who you are and where you came from. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Please let me know in the comments, do you think you stopped being working class at any point, or is it an immutable characteristic? But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.